had been driving late one Friday night, the kind of desert stretch where the asphalt seems endless and the horizon blurs into black nothingness. I was coming back from a work assignment in Albuquerque, heading toward Tucson, and I had already spent hours on the road. My headlights cut narrow tunnels into the darkness, illuminating stretches of cracked pavement and scrub that seemed to stretch on forever. I was tired, restless, and a little too alert to the emptiness that surrounded me. That's when I saw him. At first, I thought it was just another illusion, a trick of the headlights. A man, standing at the edge of the road, thumb raised in that unmistakable hitchhiker gesture. I hesitated. I was alone, miles from the nearest town, and the night was vast and empty. Part of me wanted to keep driving, to pretend I didn't see him. But another part of me, a small, stubborn part, felt compelled to stop. The desert has a way of drawing you into its stories, and sometimes you don't realize how far you've fallen into one until it's too late. I slowed, rolling the window down just slightly. The man waved, his face obscured by shadow, features indistinct under the pale glow of my headlights. He was young, maybe mid-20s, wearing a faded jacket and jeans. Nothing unusual about him, except for the stillness of the desert around him. Not a sound, no wind, no insects, just him and me and the hum of my engine cutting through the night. I rolled the window down further. "Need a ride?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. He nodded. Slow, deliberate, no words, just a nod. I unlocked the passenger door and he climbed in without hesitation. The truck felt heavier instantly, as though the night itself had pressed down when he entered. I glanced at him briefly. His eyes were dark, empty in the shadows, but there was an intensity there, a fixity of focus that made me shiver. I tried to make small talk, asking where he was headed, commenting on the storm clouds gathering over the desert. He didn't respond, only stared straight ahead, silent. At first, it was easy to ignore. The desert is isolating, and sometimes silence is comforting. But as I drove, I noticed strange things. Shadows stretched differently along the road. The moonlight glinted off the edges of the desert in ways that didn't make sense. I glanced at him again. His eyes, impossible to read in the dark, seemed to shimmer faintly, reflecting some light that shouldn't have been there. I tried to shake it off, telling myself I was tired, that the long hours on the road were playing tricks on me. Then I heard a sound, not from him, but from behind me. At first, I thought it was the wind, the low hum of the engine over the desert. But it was a whisper, faint, almost indecipherable. "Why are you helping me?" I froze. My hands tightened on the wheel. I glanced at him. His head was perfectly still, eyes fixed forward, expression unreadable. The whisper came again, clearer this time, unmistakably human. "You shouldn't have stopped." I slammed my foot on the accelerator, glancing into the rearview mirror. First, nothing. Just the long stretch of empty highway behind me. Nothing but darkness and sand. But then, out of the corner of my vision, I saw movement. Figures. Shadows. Countless shadows emerging from the desert floor, rising out of the scrub and sand. They moved toward the road with impossible speed, keeping pace with my truck. I couldn't turn my head fully without risking a crash, but I knew they were surrounding me. The desert itself felt alive. I had brought something with me, something that should have stayed buried in the vast emptiness. I glanced back at the hitchhiker. He was still there, still silent, still watching the road ahead. But then I realized he was too still. His body didn't shift with the motion of the truck. His hair didn't flutter in the breeze. Not a single movement suggested he was affected by the air rushing past us. I reached to adjust my rearview mirror, only to find it fogging up with cold breath. His breath, though the windows were rolled up. I froze, The whispers started again, this time all around me, inside the cab, coming from the very air. "You can't leave me here," they said. "You can't abandon me." I screamed, my voice drowned in the wind, but he didn't react. He didn't even glance at me. My mind tried to rationalize it. Hallucinations, exhaustion, dehydration. But the chill crawling up my spine told me otherwise. I reached to turn off ahead. A small gas station lit faintly against the darkness. Relief surged in me, but as I approached, I noticed something impossible. The station's lights flickered, dimmed, then went out entirely. The darkness beyond the headlights of my truck became solid, impenetrable, almost viscous. The shadows surrounding us began to converge, pressing closer, stretching along the road, along the scrub, along the edges of my vision. My chest tightened, every instinct screaming to get out. Suddenly, I realized the hitchhiker had disappeared. The seat beside me was empty. I slammed on the brakes, tires skidding slightly against the asphalt, and looked around frantically. Nothing. No movement. No figure. Just the road, the desert, the shadows pressing from the sides, as though he had never been there. But I knew he had. I remembered the weight, the subtle shift of air, the way the cab felt heavier when he entered. That I sped forward, desperate now. Every mile marker felt like an eternity. I tried to rationalize, tried to tell myself it had been a trick of the desert, exhaustion, hallucination. But I knew better. The desert doesn't work that way. It remembers, collects, it waits. And I had invited something into my truck, something patient, something that could vanish as easily as it appeared, but never truly leave. When I finally reached the edge of civilization, lights and streets and other vehicles, the relief was overwhelming. I didn't stop driving. I didn't look in the mirrors. I just kept moving, racing through streets and intersections, trying to put as much distance as possible between me and the stretch of highway where the hitchhiker had been. I called a friend, my hands still shaking, trying to explain what happened, but my voice faltered. No one believed me. They didn't have to. I hadn't believed myself, not at first. Years later, I still avoid that highway at night. I can't forget him. I can't forget the way the shadows moved in the desert, the impossibility of his presence, the way the cab felt heavier when he entered. Sometimes, when I drive alone at night, I swear I see him in the distance, standing by the side of the road, waiting, watching, patient, silent. I learned the hard way that some hitchhikers aren't meant to be picked up. Some are not people at all. They are shadows that remember, voices that follow. And once they are inside your car, even for a moment, even for a second, the desert never lets them go. I had always been cautious driving alone at night through the desert, but that night I was careless, or maybe just distracted. It was early November, and the air had a sharp bite to it, the kind of cold that makes the dashboard heaters barely enough to warm your fingers. I was returning from a friend's wedding in Las Cruces, heading back to Phoenix, and the stretch of highway I was on was the kind that every long-haul driver dreads after dark. Empty, straight, unbroken for miles, flanked by nothing but sand, scrub, and the faint outline of mountains in the distance. I had been driving for hours, fatigue creeping into my thoughts, when I saw it. A car up ahead, its taillights glowing faint red in the distance. At first, it seemed normal. A sedan, maybe a couple of miles ahead, driving at a steady pace. I eased up on the accelerator, preparing to pass, when something odd caught my attention. The car wasn't moving the way it should have. Its speed fluctuated in irregular jerks, as if the driver was nervous, uncertain, or possibly trying to communicate something. I slowed slightly, keeping a safe distance, my curiosity mixed with unease. There was something wrong about the way it occupied the road, something wrong about the silence that surrounded it. I noticed there were no headlights on the vehicles behind me, or at least none visible, but the desert itself seemed unusually quiet. No wind, no nocturnal wildlife, just the faint hum of my engine and the taillights ahead that I kept following, trying to rationalize. Maybe the driver was drunk. Maybe the brakes were failing. Maybe it was just a tired person like me. But as I drew closer, my unease intensified. The car seemed to shimmer at the edges, like heat haze on asphalt, except there was no heat. The desert was cold, almost biting. I tried to shake off the feeling. I was tired. Fatigue makes the mind see things. It tells you things, it bends reality just enough to be believable that I moved closer, intending to overtake, and that's when it happened. The car, which had been perfectly visible a second ago, simply vanished. One moment the red taillights were there 2 feet ahead, and the next, nothing. The road was empty, just the black asphalt stretching on, uninterrupted, as though the vehicle had been swallowed by the night itself. I slammed on the brakes instinctively, heart hammering, eyes scanning the road. There was no skid mark, no sign of impact, no wreckage, just emptiness. My breathing hitched. I muttered to myself, trying to rationalize. Maybe it swerved into a hidden turnout, maybe it broke down, maybe I imagined it, but deep down I knew none of that was true. I had seen it, plain as day, taillights glowing in the darkness. And then it had disappeared. My pulse accelerated. I scanned the horizon, my headlights cutting through the black, but there was nothing. No car, no lights, no signs of life. I slowed, gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles went white, trying to convince myself it was fatigue. But then I noticed something else. A faint trail in the sand alongside the highway. Tire tracks, but not just one set, 2 sets intertwined. And between them, faint footprints. Not human, not fully, but elongated, distorted in ways that made my stomach churn. I couldn't explain it. I didn't want to explain it. I only knew that my next instinct was to get out of there. That I accelerated again, keeping my eyes on the empty road ahead, refusing to glance behind me. And that's when the whispers started. Not immediately, not in a way that would be obvious. At first, it was just the faintest murmuring at the edge of my perception, something that could be easily dismissed as the wind or the hum of the engine. But it grew, almost imperceptibly, a chorus of soft, indecipherable voices, coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. They didn't speak words I could understand, but their tone carried unmistakable urgency, pleading, warning. My stomach twisted. I tried to tell myself it was my imagination, but the dread coiling in my chest told me otherwise. The car reappeared, not ahead of me, not behind me, beside me. I swear I felt its presence before I saw it. A sudden, oppressive weight in the air. I glanced to my right. The same vehicle, the same make and model, its red taillights glowing faintly, only now it was perfectly aligned with my passenger side window, as though it had been moving alongside me the whole time. I jerked the wheel slightly, heart pounding, and it mirrored my motion with perfect precision. The impossible synchronization froze me with terror. My mind screamed to escape, but the road was empty, silent, unforgiving. I tried to speed up, pressing the accelerator to the floor. The tires screamed against the asphalt. The desert whirled around me in a blur of darkness. And yet, no matter how fast I drove, the car kept pace. Step for step, or rather, mile for mile, perfectly matching my movements. I couldn't understand it. There was no way it was possible. There was no other road, no other vehicle capable of such precision. And yet I was being followed, or maybe accompanied, by something that defied reason. Panic began to take over. My hands trembled on the wheel, my chest heaving. I considered swerving into the desert, hoping to lose it, but the sand was soft, loose, treacherous. One wrong move and I'd be stranded, and I had no idea if I could survive long out there alone in the cold, with whatever was following me. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, now layered over the roar of the engine. I tried to block them out, focusing only on the road, on the white lines stretching endlessly ahead. But the voices found me anyway, pressing against the back of my mind, feeding on my fear, growing stronger with every passing second. Then, as if the desert itself had grown bored, the car vanished again. Not slowly, not gradually. 1 second it was there, glowing faint red in the darkness, perfectly aligned with my window. The next, gone. Just empty road, just asphalt, just the same whispering wind pressing against me. I slammed on the brakes, skidding slightly, adrenaline flooding every nerve. My pulse hammered in my ears. I tried to calm myself, rationalize, make sense of it. But there was no sense. None. Only fear. Only the desert, dark and infinite, and the memory of a car that could appear and disappear at will. I continued driving, faster and faster, until lights appeared in the distance. A gas station, a highway junction, civilization. I pulled in abruptly, engine whining, and sat in the cab, trembling, trying to convince myself it was over, that I had imagined it, that I was losing my mind. But deep down, I knew better. The desert remembers. The desert waits. And whatever had followed me, whatever had vanished and reappeared, had left a mark. Something lingering in the air, in the edges of my vision, in the whispers that sometimes return when the wind carries just right. That I never drove that stretch again at night. Not alone. Not ever. Even years later, I still avoid it. And every time I see a red tail light in the distance, my chest tightens, my hands go clammy. I know it's just my imagination, I tell myself. And yet, I also know that some things in the desert do not obey reason, do not vanish without consequence. And sometimes, cars disappear in front of you for a reason that no one is meant to understand. The memory of that night, of the car that vanished in front of me, has stayed with me. And I know, in the deepest part of my mind, that the desert isn't done with me yet. It's patient. It waits. And one day, it might decide I should disappear too. I had been driving west on Route 70 for hours, the night stretching out like a black ribbon ahead of me. The desert around me was silent, as if holding its breath, the kind of quiet that seeps into your mind and makes you question every sound. My truck was old, the engine rattling faintly as it burned miles of asphalt. The heat from the day replaced by a bone-chilling cold that made the cab feel too small and too exposed. I had been alone since sundown, the nearest town miles behind me, and I was tired, bone-deep tired, but determined to make it to Las Cruces before sunrise. I always drove with the radio on to keep myself awake. Static, talk shows, music, anything to break the oppressive silence of the desert. That night, the radio had been flicking between stations, some only faintly audible, most static and broken transmissions. I didn't think much of it at first, just the usual desert interference. But as I drove, the static began to take on a pattern, a rhythm that didn't make sense. It wasn't music or voices, it was almost like it was listening. Then I heard my name, a T first. I froze, convinced I had imagined it. "Hello," I called out, my voice cracking. The truck rattled with the sound of my own heartbeat. Nothing. Then the radio came alive in a way that made my skin crawl. Through the crackle, the static, came a clear, soft voice. "Are you alone?" I slammed on the brakes so hard the seatbelt cut across my chest. My pulse jumped, and I grabbed the steering wheel, scanning the dark desert around me. Nothing moved. Not a creature, not a vehicle, nothing but the blackness and the faint glow of the dashboard. I'm alone, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. My mind was racing. Exhaustion, hallucination, stress. Any of those could explain it. But the voice came again, this time with unmistakable certainty. I know. I'm right here. I screamed, throwing my hand to the radio, turning the dial frantically. Static, music, silence, but no repeat of the voice. My hands shook as I drove, eyes flicking to the edges of the road, searching for something, anything, that could explain what I'd heard. The night grew colder, the desert darker, and I realized something terrifying. Every time I glanced away from the radio, my heartbeat synchronized with its static. Every little rattle, every pop, made it feel like the radio was breathing with me, watching me. And then it spoke again. My name. Full and clear this time, not through static, but as if it were standing next to me. Daniel. I jerked my head toward the passenger seat. Empty. The air in the cab felt heavy, thick, almost sticky. Couldn't breathe right. I gripped the wheel, telling myself I was hallucinating, that exhaustion was bending reality. But deep down, I knew the desert had something else in mind. I wasn't alone. Something had been following me for miles. Something patient. Something that didn't belong to the world I understood. That I tried to focus on the road. Tried to convince myself the radio was malfunctioning. But every time I glanced down, the voice returned. It asked questions only I would know the answers to. Do you live alone? Are you afraid? Do you see them too? My pulse raced with each word, my mind twisting with fear and confusion. I couldn't respond fast enough, couldn't think fast enough, and the radio seemed to sense it. The static would grow louder, almost violent, then fade into that same soft, cold whisper. Then the desert itself seemed to move. Shadows flickered just outside the headlights, shapes bending with the sand and moonlight, stretching impossibly long, breaking the natural lines of the scrub and hills. I blinked. They were gone, but I could feel them, watching, waiting, and with every mile, the radio whispered more, saying things that made my stomach turn and my chest tighten. You're not safe here. They are close. Don't look back. I realized that the voice wasn't coming from the radio at all. It was coming from everywhere. From the static, yes, but also from the darkness, the desert, the wind. It seeped through the cab, pressed into my ears, my chest, my skin, until I couldn't tell if I was hearing it or feeling it. My hands shook so badly I had to hold the steering wheel with both hands just to keep the truck on the road. I tried calling someone, dialing my wife's number on my phone, but there was no signal, not even a flicker. The screen went black as if drained of life. Panic gripped me. I was completely alone, utterly cut off, and something in the darkness was aware of it. The radio spoke again, more insistently. They are behind you. They are waiting. You can't leave. I pressed my foot down harder, accelerating, praying the lights of civilization would appear soon. Anything to escape the grasp of that voice. The road began to feel different, like it had lengthened, stretched beyond reason. Each mile marker flashed past slower than the last, each curve in the asphalt sharper than it should have been. The radio began cycling between stations rapidly, each burst of static carrying snippets of words, phrases I could understand, others I couldn't. Run. Don't stop. They are here. I screamed, gripping the wheel, trying to tune the radio to nothing, to silence, to anything. And then it spoke again. My wife's voice this time, clear, perfect, from the radio. Daniel, why are you out here alone? I froze. My chest tightened. My mind reeled. That was impossible. My wife was hundreds of miles away, asleep in our house. I knew it, and yet there it was. Her voice, carried through the static, calling me by name, accusing me, warning me, coaxing me. My hands were trembling violently. I nearly lost control of the truck. The headlights flickered, the shadows outside moved again, and I knew without question that I was not alone. Something or someone was in the desert, waiting for me, watching me, speaking to me, bending the world itself to its will. That I tried to look away from the radio, tried to ignore it, but the voice penetrated every corner of the cab, every thought in my head. The desert pressed in closer, the shadows outside stretching toward me, converging. And then I heard something behind me, not on the radio, behind me, a soft, deliberate sound, like footsteps on the asphalt. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Empty, nothing, but I could feel the presence, could sense it in the pressure of the air, in the way the shadows leaned closer. The radio screamed my name. Static filled the cab violently, almost suffocating me. And then suddenly silence. Absolute, complete silence. I forced my shaking hands to the wheel, forcing the truck straight, scanning the horizon. Nothing. No headlights. No shadows. No signs of life. Only the empty desert road stretching endlessly ahead. That I drove the rest of the way to Las Cruces in a daze, not daring to look at the radio again. When I finally reached a well-lit gas station, I pulled in abruptly, shutting off the engine and sitting in the cab for what felt like hours, trembling, trying to convince myself it had been a hallucination, that it had been the desert, fatigue, and a malfunctioning radio. But deep down, I knew better. I had heard my name. I had heard my wife's voice, and I had felt the desert itself, alive, watching, whispering that I never drove Route 70 alone at night again. Even years later, the sound of static makes my skin crawl, and I can still hear faint whispers in the hum of the engine when I'm on long drives. The desert doesn't forgive, and it doesn't forget. The radio taught me that lesson. It can reach you anywhere, anytime, and once it knows your name, it will always call.